Short game wise, yes, I can. Long game wise, no. No, I have not.
He's talking the long game.
They played the long game.
They gotta play the long game.
They're experienced and they played the long game.
No, you're talking the long game.
They're experienced and they played the long game.
Very nice.
Long game is back.
When Dave and I started this podcast a few months ago, our goal was to kind of talk to people all across the golf landscape. Today is no different. Very excited because I personally don't have a lot of background on the world of long drive, distance, and speed training, but these guys do. I want to please welcome to the show pro long drivers Bryce Mooney and Sam Attanasio. I think I pronounced that correctly, did I?
Yeah.
Nailed it. Nailed it, Dave.
Welcome,
So first,
guys. Good to have you. Good to have some long hitters, some big hitters on the pod.
for a change, yeah.
For a whoa. Hold on.
I'm talking about myself.
All right, cool.
Well, first, just set the stage a little bit. I think our audience may be coming from the same perspective as us of not knowing a whole lot about this world. So brag about yourselves. If it's more comfortable to brag about each other, maybe that's easier. But who are you guys? What's your status in the world of long drive? And just let us know.
I'll brag on Sam, and then Sam can try his best. It's not very easy to brag on me. How about that?
Perfect.
So Sam is a young gun. He is a doctor in naturopathic medicine. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Natural medicine, yeah.
Natural medicine. Dr. Sam Attanasio. So not only am I the slower of the two when we work out, I'm also the less intelligent. So I just feel great about myself every Monday when we train together. Sam is ranked, I think, 22nd in the world in WLD, World Long Drive. He was the second man to ever eclipse 240 mile an hour ball speed. 240, it's insane. When I'm standing there while we train, if I'm not ready for impact, if I'm like looking over here and I don't know he's swinging, I will hit the deck taking cover because it's just ridiculously loud. Let's see, best pro finish last year was third place. What am I missing, Sam?
I mean, I think you nailed that.
You feeling good about yourself?
How did you
It's hard
two
to follow.
How did you two get connected? What's your background, Bryce?
Go ahead, Sam.
Well, let me brag on Bryce here. So Bryce has no business being in long drive. I say that because he says it all the time. He was a baseball player in college. He was a pitcher, and then went to running marathons I make fun of him for being old, so at least like 40 or 50 years. And after that, he was just golfing, hit the ball a long ways, and his buddies at the country club said, you know what, you should start looking into long drive, like see what you can do. And he was at like 124, 126 miles per hour club speed. And then within like a few months, I mean, he climbed up to touching almost 140. And that's when we met. We actually met online. He commented on a post and I was like, who's this guy? And I clicked on his profile and it pops up and it says that he lives in Franklin, Tennessee. And I'm in Columbia, Tennessee. So I'm just like 20 minutes away from him. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, you want to come train in my garage? And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. And just like that, we've been training together for a year and a half. So Bryce now, after we started training together, he's eclipsed 220 miles per hour ball speed. We're not going to release what he's actually at now because we're chasing some big numbers. So stay tuned for that one. But his longest drive last year in competition was 433, and he's been at the World Championships his first 2 years in the sport. So, I mean, doesn't get much better than that.
Dave, this scares me a little bit. This is kind of your story exactly up until someone at the country club saying you should get into long drive. But
Let's go, Bryce. Let's go, Bryce. Okay, I got so many cases. I'm just going to take it from here. I have so many follow-ups. There's so many different directions we could go in here. So what's really funny is I actually just came back this morning. So I work out with this guy. His name's Adam Picard. I'm up here in Vermont. And Adam I'm going to send him this because it's almost exactly the same story. He was a very good D1 college baseball player. He hits the shit out of the ball. Like he's the guy that when he swings driver, everyone around him, hears it. And he's a personal trainer, but he got into golf specific fitness. And so I've been working out with him for a couple of years. He's really into speed training. He swings it at 130. He's in the 130, 140 range. And I'm trying to tell him what Sam told you and the guys at your club told you. I'm like, dude, you should make this your thing. Like, you're an athlete. It's not natural because of the way the body moves. Like, it's not natural to time it up and be able to release the club and swing it at 130, 140. If you can do that, like, let's make this happen. So I want to hear, like, you had natural speed, but there's so much to the golf swing where being, you look at golf, like you see this on Instagram all the time. I see a video of like Dwayne Wade, freak athlete, but can't swing a golf club more than, 80 miles an hour. Talk to me about just the mechanics of the actual swing and like how much the fundamentals matter here, because to get to 220, 240 ball speed, you can't be hitting this thing on the low part of the face and hit a spinny cut. Like, you still got to be, that's got to be a 1.5, 1.48 smash factor. You got to be hitting this thing in the center of the club. So it's not just pure speed. I want to hear about, like, how do you harness that? You take someone that has this raw speed. Where do the mechanics go from here?
So I'll kick it off, and then Sam can get into like the doctor aspect of it. But it's so the D1 baseball player. There's not a coincidence. A lot of long drivers are former ball players. The rotational strength and fast twitch, it translates very well. But to your point about ball striking, and you actually have to have a good golf swing. A base level of strength is really important in producing speed. But even more so, a well sequenced and well timed golf swing is the only way you can get faster and get to whatever that next threshold of speed you're looking to get to, is to better sequence your swing. And so that's why you find people that as they gain speed, they have a better sequence swing, and their ball striking improves and their handicap goes down, their scoring gets better, because in nature, a faster swing is a better sequenced, better timed swing, which is better for all of golf. But Sam, what did I miss?
Well, hold on. Before you said that, you said the word. I was going to use this as a bridge. There's got to be some connection between Sam being a doctor in natural medicine and the kinematic sequence and how important that is to the golf swing, and why this guy is 22 in the world and only one of only two people to touch 240 mile an hour ball speed. So with that context, Sam, where did these two worlds collide for you?
So for me, my background was personal training. Actually got a master's in exercise science and was doing stuff with cold lasers, and then went into natural medicine and did my dissertation on cold lasers boosting human performance in the gym. So all of that stuff's kind of revolving around human performance. And it really took, when we're talking about better sequencing and different stuff, there's a big gap in this industry between book knowledge and real life application, because I came into the sport saying, I know everything I need to do. I studied every single book. I got all my passing grades. This is what every single person is telling me I need to do to get faster. And then all of a sudden you get to 200 ball speed and it stops working. You get to 205 and you need to figure out something else. You get to 210 and another thing doesn't work. And that's where, like, we have a benefit of training together, that everything that I went through probably 6 months before Bryce gets there, he then gets to go through the same thing and experiences the same thing. So we're kind of doubling up on what works and what doesn't work. And we're talking about strength and all of that stuff. There's a certain application that, when you said like guys like Dwayne Wade can't swing really fast, but then there's also the other end of the spectrum where you get the freak athlete, like take Tim Tebow. He can pick up a golf club and be 200 ball speed like that, which he did in the Bryson video, but he can't go faster than 205. He's stuck there. And that's where we talk about better sequence in the swing. He's a muscle it guy. He relies on his strength to be efficient. And in golf, you don't want big muscles to actually be efficient. You want your little fast twitch type 2X muscle fibers to be extremely fast and efficient, which is where overspeed training comes into the case, which is why we developed Speed Toad for that, because that better sequences your swing. And ultimately, the better sequence swing equals more speed, but it also equals better ball striking. Because obviously you have to push a little bit faster in speed training. We can talk about all about speed training, what that takes. But when you get to a certain point of raising your ceiling, your base moves up. And as that base moves up, that's where you're finding the center of the club face every single time, and it doesn't feel like anything. You're swinging 90% and just smoothing it down the middle type of feel, but it's faster.
So I want to talk about overspeed and speed training and get into what you guys are doing with Speed Toad, but I want to hear from you, Sam. Like, how did you learn the golf? How did you learn the proper sequencing, right? This is there is like endless videos on YouTube and content about this. I'm just curious to hear, like, when you decided to kind of go after this world a little bit and marry these two passions of yours, what were the resources you learned? And maybe for people that are listening that might not know, can you actually talk about the kinematic sequence in the golf swing and what that means?
So ultimately, where I learned it from was trial and error, because Bryce and I sat in my garage, tried every single thing, and typically speaking, every single thing you find online doesn't work. And the reason for that is not because it's wrong, it's just wrong for you as an individual. Every single person has a different body, a different neuromuscular structure, and a different, basically they're all at different places. To dumb it down, everybody has different muscles, different length of muscles, and different timing of stuff. So to be able to say a one size fits all of you need to do this, and that's how you gain speed, it's typically pretty wrong, in the sense of it'll work for 1 out of 10 people maybe, or 1 out of 100 people. And the only way you can figure that out is by working with a really good coach who understands you individually and goes, okay, you need to do this. Let's figure out how we can get that to happen. Or trial and error by yourself. And that's what Bryce and I did. We didn't work with any coaches. We just started working. And I give an example of this, of when I said try different things. Bryce and I are always working on a technique of dropping the club into the slot, which is essentially you can't put speed in the top of your swing. If you're in the top of your backswing and you start putting speed, you're going to throw it over the top, you're going to cast it, you're going to use big muscles, and it's going to be slow at impact. You only have to be fast at impact. So with all that being said, how do we get that to happen? And both of us need that to happen, but it's in completely different ways. For me, the feel is I have to feel like my hands drop in the slot before I actually start my swing. Whereas for him, he has to feel like his left shoulder shoots backwards. Two completely different feels that you would never see online, but they apply the exact same principle of getting the club in the spot to getting the club in the slot to put speed at the ball. As you can tell, my brain operates a lot faster than my mouth does, so I'll get tongue tied a lot talking about this stuff.
It's better.
That's a cool feature about yeah. One of the cool things about speed training is a better sequence swing will be faster. And so as you try to find what feels translate to better sequencing in the kinematic sequence, when you do it right with a certain feel and you get the feedback from the radar, like, oh, you just gained 2 miles an hour. That was a better sequence swing, and here was my feel. So let me try that again. That trial and error of what feels turn into another mile an hour or two kind of reinforces your better sequencing your swing.
And the best part of that is when you do it correctly, it usually is faster and feels like you put less effort into it.
So it's a perfect segue. So I don't swing it as fast as you guys, but I would say compared to the average guy that I play with, I swing it 115, 116, 17, which is pretty decent.
PGA Tour.
And well, yeah, if you look at those numbers. And so Dave Jankowski, who's my coach who listens to this podcast, I got to say that every time because I know he's going to be in his car, like smashing the windshield if I, don't admit the flaws. But I could swing it really fast, but I would take the club back too far and I would hold the face. And so I would swing it kind of steep and left and hold the face, just kind of like an old baseball habit. And so especially with driver, one of the things we're really working on is he's like, you got to let that thing go. He's like, you got to release the club head. He's like, that with driver, the club head has to outpace your hands. And I've been working on this and finally starting to get that feel. And it's exactly what you said. When I can use my wrists and keep, hinge it right and release the wrist through impact, I can get about 5 to 7 miles an hour of speed. And I feel like I'm swinging at half of the speed as when I take it way back here and I try to swing it this way. And so that was it's so cool. I'm so addicted to golf right now because it is this unbelievable process of trial and error. And it's cool that you guys are buddies and you need somebody else. And then to build on something that you both kind of hinted on, this idea of swing your own swing. Another thing that Dave gets mad about when I send him is I'll send him a video on Instagram of Brooks's left wrist. And he's like, dude, don't stop sending me this shit. This is not, this does not apply to you. This is, you know, golf is all about patterns and different matchups. And so it's just cool to hear how you guys have different approaches here. And it's like, look, I love YouTube. I love golf. I love watching that stuff, but it really is like everyone, especially with the golf swing, because it is so body dependent. We are all going to be so different that you can't just watch a video about how to do X and go and apply it. You need to actually go through trial and error and figure out like what the right matchups for you are.
Yeah. My pitching coach growing up always said, you know, if there was one best way to pitch a baseball, every pitcher in the big leagues would look that exact same way. There's commonalities amongst them that everybody holds true certain principles, but man, everybody's body is different. Everybody's joints, the way they work are different. And yeah, swing your own swing. Mine sucks, so I'm going to swing it.
So I'm going to keep asking questions that I'm going to pretend are for the audience, but they're really just for me. So for the folks
That's why
in the
we
audience,
started this podcast, dude. Yeah.
for folks in the audience that don't know the kind of world you guys are in, can you explain just how I don't want to call it the tour, but how do competitions work? How does qualifying work? What's the timeline? What's your Masters? I assume it's the championship in, what is it, Atlanta in the summer, but set the stage.
Good, Bruce.
So last year there were 10 events, all the way from as west as Denver and Utah, all the way up to Connecticut, down to Florida. This year there are 6 events, and then they have a few different what we're calling majors. The one next month in California in March, that'll be on, I believe, Golf Channel. Another one in June or July up in Canada, which will be on ESPN and Golf Channel. And then the World Championships in Atlanta, which will be on, I think, Golf Channel and ESPN as well. So the sport is growing, which is exciting. But yeah, there's 6 different tournaments and essentially with other qualifiers. So the top, I believe it's 30 ranked hitters automatically qualify for the World Championships. And then there are also what we call regional tournaments, and the top 5 finishers of those tournaments also qualify for the World Championships. So there's a few different avenues there. And a tournament it's really, really fun to watch, especially in person. There's usually 64 hitters, and it's a round robin format until you get to the final 8 or 16. And then it's heads up, man. It's like, it's the adrenaline, the intensity when you're going heads up against somebody. Last year in Kingsport, Tennessee, one of our last tournaments before Worlds, I have never been so juiced, and I wasn't even hitting. I was in the stands, and Sam versus Kyle Berkshire heads up, and the winner made the final 8, which got on Golf Channel. And I was so like into it. It was just so much fun to watch. I can't imagine the adrenaline that Sam had going heads up against Kyle. He fell, I think, just 4 yards short of getting onto the Golf Channel. But I think you hit a ball and play it like 227 or something, like 227 miles an hour. That's adrenaline right there.
And Kyle's kind of the current GOAT in this world right now.
Yeah, the active one, yes.
The active one.
Who is the
who has better calves though?
Kyle's got some tanks on his, on his legs.
Man, I was
Jason Zuback would be considered probably. I think everybody kind of considers him the godfather of long drive. Well, it's somebody else, but he's considered the GOAT of long drive still. But Kyle might give him a run for his money. We'll see. I believe Zuback has 6 world championships, I think, and Kyle's now at 3. I mean, we're talking. I mean, this is like Michael Jordan versus LeBron James type of debate in the long drive world. A little bit less famous, I guess you could say, than that. But
who does that make you then?
I'm like Scottie Pippen.
Title?
There you go. Scottie Pippen. Let's go. Scotty could hold it down. Okay.
The guy who thinks he's pretty good, does pretty good, but doesn't get a lot of credit for anything.
Love that.
So obviously you guys train so much for distance, but talk to me a little bit about accuracy. The best tour pros are hitting 70% of the fairways. In competition, what's the percentage you guys are? What's a good percentage there?
So percentage-wise, I mean, they did this at not this last championship, but the 2022 World Championships. The top guys were sitting at about 50 to 60% accuracy in the grid. And keep in mind, they're hitting 6 balls every set. And then the lower end guys are probably in the like 20% to 30% range. Obviously, there's some outliers who are lower who just have bad days and stuff. You got one thing you got to keep in mind with that is the faster you're swinging, say your club face is open 1 degrees, all of a sudden at 230 ball speed, that thing's 100 yards to the right. It has to be so precise to be able to hit it in the fairway. And I'm not one of the most accurate guys out there. I hit my garage too much for that. I need some outdoor flighting, but the focus has been on speed so far, and then can shift focuses. But there's some guys out there that guys like, Eddie Fernandez, Jacob Galladay, a couple of long drivers that just fill the grid. I mean, 5 or 6 balls a set consistently at high ball speeds. They're just crazy good golfers.
And you mentioned someone having a bad competition day. What's the difference between a good competition day and a bad competition day, yardage wise?
Yardage wise, it's more about going OB. If obviously there's people who are going to hit short shots or something like that and not like the ones that they hit in play. But typically speaking, like if one of us connects on a ball, it's going to be in play. That's going to be in play. It's going to go pretty far. It's more so that you just feel off in your swing. Maybe your speed's not there because you got a bad night's sleep or travel messed up, something like that. There's a lot of outliers, but it's usually the types where you hit, say, 5 sets in the round robin, and 2 or 3 of those sets you go OB, which you get 0 points when you go OB. So it's very difficult to advance unless you're winning if you go in OB. What do you think, Bryce?
Go ahead.
Just like most sports, game of inches. My world championships last year is a good example of that. We're hitting it. It was midday. There's no wind and not much rollout, and we're hitting it about 370 yards. Was a good drive at my time slot. My first set, I tied for first place, literally to the yard, tied for first place. My second set, I got second place by 1 yard, and then I missed that cut. So essentially, out of 5 sets, I missed making the cut by 1.5 yards. It's just a crazy margin of error sometimes.
That's crazy. And is there preferred ball flight in competition?
I think mostly depends on the wind. If you have a helping wind, you're a little bit more generous on spin. You're okay with a 2,500 spin, getting that ball up in the air and letting it carry. But if there's any sort of hurt wind, you really can't have that spin above 2,000, and you've got to launch it a little bit lower with no spin, depending on the rollout. There's a lot of intricacies depending on the conditions that you really need to be a good ball striker in addition to speed.
Yeah, a lot of people think long drivers are just like, we'll go up there and swing as fast as we can and mash it, which we do in speed training, certainly. But when you're there and we're talking about the top guys, like the things that people don't see is we walk the grid before competition and we look for the hills and the valleys and where you want to land it and kick it back in the grid to stay in, because there are shots that you'll hit right down the center, especially when we're playing on a golf course, that kicks OB or something at 400 yards and just what happened, it was straight down the middle just because it's unlucky. So you'll sit going, okay, I need to hit a draw up the right side of the grid into this hill here, carrying it 380 to get the release and the rollout. And it needs to be a mid-flight for the altitude that we're at. So I'm going to use this competition setup and this swing. And there are so many different aspects of long drive that people don't see. And when it's on TV, they just see us. We stand up there, we swing hard, and we hit a lot of OB. That's kind of what people see, but they don't see the actual metrics behind everything.
But do you see, that's a great question, Case. That was one of my things I was trying to get in there. But do you see a shot shape? Like as a golfer, you must see, like I see a cut.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was fighting
wild.
the power cut last year all year. I just couldn't get that out of my head. I'll call it a power cut.
And just give me some sense, just because I want to geek out on the metrics a little bit. Like, what is you hit a power cut in a long drive competition? What does your swing direction look like?
Mine was like probably -3 at that point, which was too much. Now I'm back up to like +3, which I love where I'm at compared to last year. But I was probably swinging out to in 3. Sam, on the other hand, is crazy. He's swinging in to out probably in competition, 6-7 degrees?
Yeah, my swing last year in competition was aim up the right side of the fairway, hit a like 6 degrees into out with a closed club face. So I hit this little like pull draw right down the middle, and it was just BBs at like 7 degrees launch.
And it just must have when you catch one of those good ones with that swing direction, you just have one of those no spin little hooks that just run. You catch one of those mounds and it runs forever.
Yep, exactly.
But hey, Bryce, was -3 like swinging it left, which is -3? Was that kind of the max of? Can you be successful swinging it more than that, or you're just going to be creating too much spin?
I think it largely depends on the golfer, but I think most people are going to struggle anything outside of -2 probably. And that goes back to like what Sam was talking about with my left shoulder. I hadn't found that feel yet of what it took to get my hands lower in the slot to get more down the line or into out. Um, but to be, competitively anything less than that, because our drivers are delofted so much. I mean, we're competing at like 2.5-degree drivers. Um, because if you are more than -2 with a basically flat face, you get so much side spin that it's going out of bounds, and it's not traveling as far either. So yeah, the margin of error is just very little.
But it's okay to swing it the other way. So Sam can swing it 6 degrees right to left. That the way the physics of the golf swing work in a circle, it's okay to swing it out that way.
I'm kind of an outlier on that. Typically speaking, in competition, you'd want to hang between -2 and +2 because that gives you the best chance to have success hitting it in play. I went into the most competitions this year as if I get one in play, it's going to be a bomb and I don't care about anything else. So that's where I got you're going to typically have you'll have your fastest swings into out. And the reason for that is a lot of times when you are swinging out to in, it's a swing flaw that causes that. You're either dragging it through the zone, you're throwing it a little bit over the top, you're not being efficient in your transition. There's a lot of different ways that can cause that. So if I'm trying to be as efficient as possible and swing as fast as possible, I'm going to want to be into out respectively.
If you think about the physics of the golf club, the second your club head goes over plane, goes out to in, you lose that flex in your shaft that you've created, the lag. The second that club head goes over plane, that shaft that was flexed is now straight, and so you lose club head speed and ball speed as well.
Let's give some people, like the average golfer that listens to this, like separate from speed training. I want to hear you guys talk about just the philosophy of hitting driver. Like there's so much that I didn't know about how driver is a different swing, how you have to hit up on it. Let's give some advice just to the average person listening to this about just like the philosophy of driver that's going to help them hit it further.
Yeah, I mean, just in a blanket statement, I mean, we just talked earlier about how good coaches don't necessarily give blanket statements or something, but so here's a couple blanket statements.
Yeah, that's what I want. This is a classic doctor move. That was a legal disclaimer.
That was the liability waiver. But a lot of average golfers that struggle, I mean, typically golfers are going to struggle with that left to right shot, kind of like a slice. A lot of people put too much spin on the golf ball. Best way to hit it longer is increase your angle of attack, because naturally speaking, if you're at -5, which is hitting down on the golf ball, you want to do that with irons. You don't want to do that with the driver. That's where the different swing that you just said comes in.
Can you explain why? I actually find most people don't even know that. Can you explain why? Why do you want to hit down with an iron? Why do you want to hit up with a driver?
So it's compression, and you want irons to spin to get up in the air. So you're essentially compressing the ball, which is pinching the ball. So if the ball's here and you slap down on it, it'll spin up the club face and go up in the air. With a driver, you have lower loft. You want to take spin off of it. So if you come in this direction and launch it in the air, it's almost it's not a knuckleball, but it takes the spin off of it. So it acts like that. And TrackMan did a whole bunch of studies on this and found at every different club speed, and you can look this stuff up, what the optimal carry distance is at different angles of attack and what it does to spin and ball speed. Ball speed goes up when the angle of attack goes up, and also distance does. So at -5, you're losing probably 20 yards of carry. At 0, you're pretty even. And at +5 angle of attack, you're going to gain about 20 yards, depending on your club speed. So the best way to do that is swing up on the ball. So bump that ball up in your stance is kind of a cheat code to hitting up on it a little bit. That's one super easy way that you can gain some distance. Another is forward pressing your hands just a little bit. And this is counterintuitive to a lot of what philosophies are, you'd want to do that with irons. The reason I say that is a lot of amateurs that I see struggle with flippy wrists, and that's weak impact. So if you strengthen or if you forward press your hands just a little bit at address, you're actually lowering your dynamic lofted impact. And dynamic loft is, say your driver is a 10-degree loft. At impact, it might be 20 because you're flipping your hands. So that's when, especially from the outside, if you're swinging from the outside, you get this really weak, flary slice out to the right versus driving the ball straight. So if you can lower your dynamic loft a little bit, that's where you get a little bit more penetrating of a ball flight. And you'll find a lot of amateurs, just by making those two changes, swinging up on it a little bit and also lowering their dynamic loft a little bit, can have a lot more success in hitting the ball far. What do you think, Bryce? Give me a couple of your tips.
You know, a lot of guys I play with are guilty of this. I think the easiest, quickest way to do what Sam's talking about is to raise your tee heights. I think on average, the average golfer tees their driver too low. And if you think about just simply, if the ball is teed very low, it's going to be very difficult to hit up on it because there's no room to get underneath the golf ball. So you're going to hit down on the golf ball and it's going to hit low on your club face, which means the ball will quite literally ride up your club face, which creates more spin. It takes getting used to, but I feel like a lot of people can afford to give it another half inch of tee height, which will make it a lot easier to hit up on the ball. And you'll see 10, 15 yards like that just because you're teeing it up higher and hitting up on it another couple degrees.
And off that, a lot of people might say, well, Tiger Woods doesn't tee the ball up high. You're right. He's a phenomenal golfer, and he's not looking for distance. He wants accuracy. And the more spin you have, the easier it is for the ball to stay in the fairway. But when people are only swinging 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, spin's your enemy. You want to be able to hit the ball further. That's how you're going to score better. It's not keeping it in the fairway, because there's a bunch of studies done on distance lowering score. But for every 10 yards you gain off the tee, ultimately you drop your handicap by about 1.8 to 2 strokes. So the typical average golfer, tee the ball a little higher, swing up on it, start hitting the ball further, and you're going to lower your scores and have a lot more fun. As well as every 3 yards you hit additional off the tee, you can afford to be 1 yard less accurate and still score the same score. So that is a huge factor. And I don't want that to be understated, because if you're hitting the ball further, you could be less accurate and still score better because you now have that distance advantage.
And Bryce, we were talking earlier, you were saying that, kind of contrary to maybe some people in the long drive world, both you and Sam actually love the game too, playing. So talk a little bit about what your games are like when you're not, training and speed training and going for distance. What's like a typical round? How often are you guys playing, enjoying, all that stuff? Do you carry handicaps?
So every week I'm a routine guy. I thrive off routine. So Monday I'm training in Sam's garage. Because I'm old, the rest of the week is recovering from that training day. And then Friday is my day I play 18 holes with my buddies. So my handicap is 4 right now. 4.0. I have never been in the threes. I need one more good round. I think I have like 3 more rounds before, another good score gets dropped. So I just enjoy being outside. Probably my baseball upbringing, like being outside, walking on the grass, talking with your buddies. It's just, that's the way I love ending my week. And then, so Monday long drive training, and then Friday I play my 18 holes and lose $30 usually, but that's okay.
Do you have a separate set of clubs for, like, a separate driver for playing recreationally versus long drive?
So I actually, last year I struggled with that because I had a very stiff and accurate setup for my Friday round. And then my long drive setup was lighter weight, more whippy shaft, lower loft, and going back and forth just kicked my butt. And so this year I only use driver on the course, I think 1 hole, and I just use my 3-iron off the tee. And so I'll play our course. I play at the same course University of Vanderbilt plays at. So I get to see, like, on the range, I get to see Gordon Sargent doing his thing, and that's just unbelievably beautiful sight to see as I have a beer.
Cool.
So I'll play a 7,000 yard course, and I only hit driver once. I just hit 3-iron about 280 yards, and I'm pretty accurate with it because it's I get to compress the ball, like Sam was saying. And so it's kind of weird. I only have 12. I only really play with 12 clubs in my bag, which is weird, but yeah, it's unique. But that's what I'm gonna roll with this year. That way, I don't have to go back and forth between two different drivers.
Did you ever just devil's advocate? You ever think that maybe adding 2 more clubs might help?
I go back and forth.
Use all the weapons you got, man. Come on, we gotta get you down. We
Don't
gotta
change
get
it.
you to scratch. Like, let's use the clubs. Maybe I'll get you my dad's chipper or something. I don't know.
There's
So I've
nothing
got
worse than
3
saying I
options.
lost to a guy with 12 clubs.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
I've
demoralizing.
got 3 options. I need a vote here. I've got 3 of you. I got 3 options. One, I can add a 5 wood and try to gain another 20 yards off the tee compared to my 3-iron. I can just go full driver and lose 5 golf balls around if you guys want to pay me $25 a week. Or I can make an Instagram handle and call myself the 12 club golfer.
Only if it helps. Only if it helps move Speed Toad.
There you go.
That's the only way I would do that. Otherwise, I think you're long enough. Hit the 3-iron. Let's get you some wedges and let's score.
So
Sam,
I've got a
you?
60 degree. Do I go 62, 64? I mean, is that crazy?
No, you don't need that much loft. There must be some dialing it in. Willis, if the folks from TrackMan or Titleist are listening to this, we gotta get Bryce dialed. That's all
I need 2 clubs.
Sam, how about you? How often are you playing? What are you playing? And I want both of you to go through your yardages too. That'd be fascinating. But go ahead, Sam.
Okay, so we gotta back this up for me. I played baseball when I was younger, and then I had some health issues, so I had to pick up an individual sport because I couldn't practice with a team. I didn't know when I was going to be okay to play stuff, so I lived in the golf course and said, all right, I'm going to start playing golf as a sophomore in high school. And within a year, I became a scratch golfer, and by my senior year, I was a +3 handicap. Low round was a 63 9 under, and so I was a very good golfer back in the day. Had some more health issues, ended up turning down a college scholarship to play golf. Didn't play golf for 5 years. Got at that time I did hit the ball far, so I was starting to look in the long drive. I did a local qualifier. So when I started to get back into golf this time around, I knew immediately I needed to do long drive because that was just one of my huge passions. And so right now, I don't play a whole lot of golf. Last year, in fact, I only played 1 round with Bryce, and he's been trying to get me out every week. He's like, you want to go play golf? You want to go play golf? You want to go play golf? It's like, I'm training. So I train more often than he does in the garage. And that was just because my number 1 priority last year was trying to break the ball speed record. And last year, nobody thought I could possibly get to 230 ball speed because I was sitting at like 210 ball speed. And at the time, only 5 people had gone 230. And I ended up going 240 last year. So I proved everybody wrong on that. And I dedicate a lot of that to just my training and stuff. But I like to consider myself a month away from being scratch because I know I still have a lot of good golf talent. And that's why I can get away with hitting in a net in my garage for an entire year. And the only time I saw ball flighting was out in competition. I would go to the competition, hit on the range, see the ball flight and go, oh, so that's what it looks like flying. I should probably hit it like this in competition. And then would go out and hit in competition. So not ideal for winning tournaments. And I'm going to try to change that up this year. But that's kind of the background. I still love golf and love doing it. Just my priorities and what I'm focusing on right now has shifted a little bit away from that.
This is perfect. We have the 2 new handles for you guys. We have the 12 club golfer and the month from scratch. Month from scratch is a great line. Just on I'm ready to be scratch.
And you can do one of those YouTube videos like I played Bryce and DeChambeau with 12 clubs. You won't believe what happened next.
The thumbnail right here. The thumbnail.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, real quick, just go through your yardages too. Just curious.
Through the whole bag?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, driver, we'll just call it like 370. My 3-iron is like 285. All the way down, let's just jump to like my 8-iron would be
the highlights.
Yeah, my 8-iron would be like my 180 club if it's just like no wind, nothing, flat. And then like my 56 degree is like 125. And I'm not like, that's not like, let's see how far I can hit it. That's kind of my, shoulder to shoulder swing because I'm trying to score.
Wait, sorry, what's your 150 club?
That's like a half choke down pitching wedge. Like I'll choke down half an inch with a pitching wedge for 150.
You're not laying up at 150. You want a full swing. So what are you laying up at?
Like on a par 5?
Well, I guess, our definitions of layup are different.
Do you want to restate that, sir? Laying up at
I've never heard of this phrase, layup. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm talking to the wrong people, I think.
This guy hits his 3-iron 285.
In the event that I hit a drive in the fairway, there's this thing called not going for it. And what I do is I pretend to hit it 150, but I hit it thin about 120 yards, and I say, "Yep, good layup."
If there's hazards, I lay up because I'm a cautious golfer. I don't want to lose golf balls. That kills my score. If there's hazards, anything over like 220, I try to be super cautious. If there's no hazards, I mean, I'll go 3-iron at 275 off the fairway if there's no hazards. To woods or water or anything.
And Sam, you don't have to go through the whole bag, but just give us your putter distance because that's a YouTube video. Can you explain that?
I went 327 with a putter until it broke and went into my ceiling. So go check out that video, Sam Attanasio on YouTube. I know I can go further with that. I just struggle with accuracy, but the rest of my clubs, I was just doing some stuff recently. That's the only reason I know distances wise. I hit a 3-wood recently, 210 ball speed, 360 distance. Pitching wedge, I can get in the 220s. And typically on the course, I probably hit, if I'm 200 out, I'll probably hit a pitching wedge. That's kind of my yardage there.
What was your ball speed on the putter? What was your ball speed on the putter?
About 170,
which is like the center of the putter face is like 2 inches. That's insane.
The best part about that video, you should
look at the hearts.
I don't know.
The best part about that video is there's a good, I want to say 10 seconds where you guys have no idea where the putter went when it fractured, and there's a moment where someone contemplates that it's not like in the universe anymore. They're like, it's not in the room anymore. I think it went through the house, through the building.
My camera guy was fully convinced that it went straight into the drywall because there's a giant hole in the ceiling. He's like, I think it's in the roof. Meanwhile, I'm holding my hands because it broke, and it felt like on a cold day in baseball when you take one off the end of the bat and it just shocks your hands. That's exactly what I felt from the metal snapping. It was terrible.
Dave, you got anything else on long drive stuff before we wrap up? We do want to hear about the product you guys have been developing for training. You want to talk about that for a second?
Hold on. In my head, I got Bryce telling me that he's a conservative, cautious golfer, and this guy swings it at 200 miles an hour. Those two things don't add up. But
he's conservative compared to me, which is why he says he's a conservative golfer, because I'm the type of guy that it could be an island green at 420 and I'm like, yeah, I could probably drive that green and my handicap doesn't matter anyways. I'm the worst for any skins game because I think my active handicap's like a 10 and I play like one round a year, but I'll get like 3 or 4 eagles on the round and then just throw some bad shots. So when he sees golf like that, and me swinging out of my shoes, he goes, yeah, I'm real conservative. It's only 320. I'll hit my 4-iron to the green.
That's dangerous, though. I mean, you got down to a +3, so you know how to score. Like, no chance I want you at a 10.
And I'm just thinking, too, you guys are probably get cash offers to be in scrambles, right? I mean, what's more valuable than a guy that can just throw one out there that far? You're almost illegal in scrambles, I'd say.
Yeah.
It makes it fun.
You just found our next. You found a future content segment. Let's fly down south a little bit and go get a scramble in. Hey, let's talk about you guys getting into business. Talk about your product for a little bit before we wrap up.
Yeah. And Dave, you're the marketing guy, right? You that's your background.
Yes. So I already approve of the branding. The toad hat is fantastic. If that's what you're asking.
Appreciate it. No. So yeah, pick us apart from a marketing perspective, but. Last year, the backstory is we tried every speed training aid out there, and we would give each speed training aid kind of its go for a couple months, and we would see gains with those speed training aids, Let's just pretend we gained 5 miles an hour with whatever aid it was. But at the same time, our drivers would only gain 2 miles an hour. And so we would just kind of like every 2 months be like, gosh, why is our driver not gaining speed as fast as these aids are? Where's the disconnect? And we realized it's because of the shafts. Whatever speed training aid it was not our driver shaft that we were playing or competing with. We all go get fitted for our driver shaft because it fits our swing, whether it be the right weight, the right kick point, the right amount of flex. And so we were talking about sequencing swings, as you learn to sequence properly a certain speed training aid, well, it takes a different sequence for your driver, uh, your actual driver. And so that's kind of where the nexus of Speed Toad came from was, well, we need a way to speed train with our own driver shaft. And so we trained with it all last year and saw the gains that we saw. And on Thanksgiving this last year, we launched it kind of begrudgingly because now like 20% of the long drivers are already using it. And so now we're a little like, oh crap, they're going to start, catching up to us this next year. But that's kind of the nexus of it. Now, Sam, I don't know if you want to give like an update of where we're at.
Yeah, so ultimately, for those that don't know, Speed Toad is a lighter weight option that can attach to your driver shaft, and it attaches to all major brands. So whatever, if you're hitting TaylorMade, Callaway, Cobra, Ping, like we have the attachment, we have just a different screw for it that you'll get with it. And it's ultimately that you get to speed train with your own driver shaft. We have an entire program that Bryce and I set up. Yeah, there's Speedy right there. And we created a program for people. We're developing an app right now that'll be released here and within the month, most likely. And that's kind of where it's progressed so far. We had a lot of success down at the PGA shows because a lot of people, when they see this, especially teachers, they go, it makes complete sense. Like the timing of your shaft is so vital in able to hit the ball more accurately, first of all, but also be faster, and to efficiently use the flex and kick of your own shaft is super important.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned earlier about how you can feel the load and the kick at the ball, and you're starting to have that light bulb moment of that feel, and that's what the Speed Toad's about. Is when you speed train with your shaft, you start getting that feel. It's lighter than your driver head, so it's going to train your fast twitch muscles to move faster, but it's also heavy enough to where it's going to activate your shaft like your driver head does, so you still get that feel of the load at the top and the kick at the ball, and then just further, building those feels and that timing.
I'm just curious about the entrepreneurial side of this. Lots of people have had it, everybody's got a friend who has an idea for a product, right? Whether how successful you guys are is yet to be determined down the road. But like shout out to you guys for actually like building something, right? This is real. You have a product, you have a business, you're physically holding the product in your hand. Like, I just have so much respect for that. We've all played golf with the guy who's got 20 ideas. I'm like, yeah, well, you're never going to do it, right? Everybody's got an idea. You actually did it. Just give me a couple words on what was the process from idea to execution and having and especially I come from the software world where I wouldn't say it's easy, but what we're dealing with is digital goods, right? To actually manufacture a physical product is a whole other beast. I'm just curious to hear that story a little bit.
For sure. It's funny because we built this only for us to train with. It's not like we had this idea to sell and we're going to we built prototypes just so we could train with it. And then after we saw how good it worked, we were like, well, shoot, this probably would do pretty well. We should bring it to market. Amongst my career, I had 5 years at Nike headquarters in Oregon. And so I kind of tapped in to my sports marketing and supply chain background to help kind of bring a product to market. And then it pairs perfect with Sam's background of training and, excuse me, his was your master's in again? I can't keep track of all your degrees.
Exercise science.
Exercise science. So, between my background of sports marketing and supply chain manufacturing to his sports science, exercise science background. It just was a perfect blend. And then, after we launched on Thanksgiving, within 2 weeks, we had shipped it, I think, to 5 or 6 different countries. We're like, what this? And so then we said we should go to the PGA show. And now, potentially we could have this on retail shelves across the world in the coming weeks and months. It's pretty exciting.
I just went over to Chat. I just designed you guys a new logo real quick. I just went over to ChatGPT and asked to design a logo of a toad running, just jolting, shooting through the air. My only critique would be like, I think you need a mascot. I think right now Speed Toad is like, it's an actual product, but I think you could have this very lovable, fast, jacked toad that could become the future of your business. So that part's free.
Jacked toad.
That part's free for coming on the pod. We can talk at another time, but this was a blast. I just messaged Casey that this was a bunch of fun, and I love having people from the golf world come on, and I feel like I learned something new, but also got to talk and share a couple stories that I know that people are listening to this are going to find a lot of value from. So thank you guys for hanging out with us today.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming on. I actually have one more question I wanted to get to. I forgot to get to it earlier, but I was thinking about this. We can wrap on this. If there was a world long drive competition, but it had to be quiet, there's no yelling or grunting, what percentage less are the balls going?
I'd be DQ'd. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh man, at least 10%. At least 10%.
It's interesting because, especially speed training wise, there'd be a big downtick of that. That's one of those things of you have to actively be amping up your nervous system and just firing on all cylinders to get it done. In competition, a lot of times, like your first ball in play will be fine. You're not going to grunt. Second ball, it's fine. You're not going to grunt. And believe it or not, more so in competition, it's once you know the ball's in play that you actually will scream. So versus the swing and the grunt. And that's kind of a thing of you got to know both. There's a select thing of you have to know your competition and you have to know how far you're hitting that day before you yell at it, because there's a lot of good guys who will hit a ball, think they killed it, scream at it, it spun a little bit too much, it hits, and the number pops back and it's like 320, and the dude next to him didn't scream, it went 370, and he just looks over at him like, what are you doing? And that's the whole put your tail between your legs and walk off the stage at that point.
All right, I'm going to try that now. I
wish you guys knew Casey better offline, because that was just like the most Casey level question I've ever heard.
Well, I had to get it in for you, Dave.
Well,
thanks so much for coming on, guys.
You bet. If you have any questions during speed training, we love speed training and we love seeing people get better. And so, Dave, Casey, if you get into speed training, have any questions, just let us know. We love helping out.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And Sam, thanks for being the first doctor on the pod. That adds a whole new level of legitimacy to us. So we appreciate it. Can you get guys both quick, just before we go, give where people can follow you and follow your progress and everything with Speed Toad?
Long Drive Bryce is the Instagram and YouTube, and then Speed Toad is the handle there.
Yeah, I'm BombitLD on TikTok and Instagram, and then Sam Attanasio on YouTube. Go check me out. I hit putters through the ceiling.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so you didn't shout out Rory. And Rory, I'll do it for you. And Rory, come on the pod.
Oh, yeah. I say at the end of every podcast, Rory, come on the pod.
Rory, come on the pod.
And get a speed Toad. I don't know if he needs it, but
he's good. He's be all right. Seems to be working for him.
All right, stick to the program, Rory.
He's talking the long game.
They played the long game. The long game gotta play the long game. They're experienced and they played the long game.